Well, we're waiting on what could be some very heavy rains and the potential for flash flooding for later tonight into Friday, but the question is who and where. And we've got meteorologist Bill Goodman from the National Weather Service in Upton, New York, to help us solve that problem. We'll also talk about the weekend and the long range. That is all tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show, brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York. Mulch, topsoil, sand, and salt this coming winter. And also, if your home needs a spruce up and want to get it secure in case there's some weather going on, head over to Omni, 6317561125 for the best prices in town. The website is
OmniTrueValue.com.
Tempest by WeatherFlow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system. Join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet, which would come in handy in a storm like this. The link to Tempest is pinned to the top of the chat board. It's also on the descriptor to this video. If you decide to purchase this or anything else from the Tempest website, be sure to use the coupon code I want a weather station, because deep down inside you do. And if you do, you get
10% off, Joe.
Yes. So here we are. We're started up a little bit early because we have live folks from the National Weather Service Forecast Office in Upton, New York. And if those of you who don't know where Upton is in central Long Island, in the town of Brookhaven. And there is Bill Goodman, who is running around like a chicken without a head because he's trying to come up with the solution to this potential heavy rain for tomorrow night into Friday morning, or it may be even a little bit longer. Bill, the bottles, I was really kind of surprised when I saw them this morning to see how much rain that they were giving. I mean, I thought they probably would get at least a few inches out of this in some places, but seeing numbers that were on the order of 5, 6, and 7 was a little disconcerting. But even more disturbing was the fact that we're 24 hours away from, at the time, from something to start up with, and which model had it in accessed in northern New Jersey to the Hudson Valley to the Catskills, which one had it accessed in southern New England down to Long Island, and very little on either side. I mean, where are we with this in your mind as to how this is going to set up?
Yeah, a little bit tricky. I know some of the later runs of the HER, and even even looking at the RAP, they seem to be shifting things a little bit west, more toward the city and up into the Hudson Valley. I know some of the ones late this afternoon that I think it was the 18Z HER was more like Queens and Nassau up in a western Connecticut, and that was with some pretty heavy bullseyes there too. I think I saw the 15-inch bullseye right around JFK Airport, and then that run of the Nam Nest, 30 inches off the Jersey Shore. That's insane.
Well,
I have a question. What I've heard of it. I heard about it, and I know that on CBS 2, Lonnie Quinn seems to worship this particular model, the Graph, GARAF, the Graph model, and he's telling people tonight that the Graph model was predicting that for parts of northeastern New Jersey, 9.24 inches. And I say to myself, what is this? Is there some kind of a new mesoscale model or whatever? 9.24 inches? Not to say that it's not impossible. Anything is possible sometimes in situations like this. But I mean, my God, I mean, what are we talking about here?
I don't know. I'd never heard of that model, but I know that the broadcast isn't the RPM model. Isn't that the big broadcast model? Is it just another version of that?
It could.
Well, I think
it could be.
The Futurecast is the RPM model.
Okay.
But there's so many models out there. What it seems to me, Bill and Joe, is that the mesoscale models, the NGM, for example, the NGM.
The no good model.
the NAM, the HRRR. These models are going like off the wall with like 2 and 3 inches per 6-hour period.
Well, I have the HRRR up on the screen. I have the 18Z. So go ahead, Joe. I was just going to run these in the background. So I'll run the 18Z, and then I'm going to switch over to the latest one.
I mean, the mesoscale models are going off the wall. Now, the global models like the GFS and the European, they're putting down, pretty good numbers too, but nothing like what the mesoscale models. I mean, the mesoscale models are suggesting like 4, 5, 6, 7 inches. The graph model 9 inches or whatever. I mean, basically the European and the GFS, from what I've been able to see, has been talking about something like maybe a couple of inches, 2.5 inches. And by the way, Joe, I looked at the Le Plumes, and Le Plumes is talking about between White Plains and Poughkeepsie, anywhere from 1.5 to about 2.1. Actually, the 2.1 would be for White Plains, and the 1.5 or 1.6 would be for Poughkeepsie. So I mean, some models, I mean, they're all going for a heavy rainfall, but I mean, like the global models are going for, yeah, it'll be heavy, but it's not going to be a, cataclysmic. But the mesoscale models are going like, yeah, it's going to be going crazy, 5 inches, 6 inches, 7.
Oh.
And I try, and the positioning of, as Bill said, the bullseye has been jumping around. JFK, Hudson Valley, Ridgefield, Connecticut, boom, boom, boom. What do you for? So what you do is, I guess, Bill, is you paint the entire forecast area in green, say there's a flash flood watch, and say, generally speaking, 2 to 4 inches, and then to cover yourself, you say with some isolated 5-inch spots, and you're covered.
Unless she gets.
Well, what else can you really do in a situation like that?
I don't know.
The fact that the global models moved in the direction of what the mesoscale models were doing though today, and that's not a good sign. That's
Right.
maybe the answer is going to converge somewhere in the middle. That somebody's going to get some big rainfall totals, and it's going to be more isolated than it's going to be probably a narrow strip that really gets hit hard.
Doesn't this all? I was reading this off of WPC's discussion earlier today, which made a lot of sense, and we all know that WPC is watching this show secretly as we speak. But as they are lurking, we have all these lurkers in the background.
Quiet back.
Well, right. He put the forecaster pointed out that a lot really on this depends on where this inverted trough sets up. And I got the surface map from 21Z, the way they've got it analyzed here, and they've got this stationary boundary that's east of North Carolina, east of Hatteras, by about 40 or 50 miles, and then runs northeast to about 38.5 and 70. So that's kind of how they have it at the moment. But he made the case. He said that basically the position of the inverted trough, depending on which mesoscale model you looked at, if you've got the ones that were kind of lining it up right along the New Jersey shore, to across Long Island into western Connecticut, so that everything along that trough axis and westward that's where the axis of heavy rain would be. But on the other hand, talking about how the global models had it more, east northeast, and kind of off the axis was further offshore, so that you'd get rain, but all the really big amounts would be offshore. I don't, certainly off the 21Z map, I don't know what the answer is here as to where this inverted trough is going to set up.
It's a little bit more complicated than that, because you don't just have what's going on at surface. You have what's going on aloft. You have a pretty stout southeast inflow in the mid levels, between 700 850 millibars, like a southeast flow, probably 35 40 knots. I mean, that's bringing a lot of tropical moisture into this, and you have an upper jet. We're going to be in the left. The right entrance region of an upper jet that's going to be to our west. That's going to provide some. That's going to be providing some good large scale lift. I guess just the question, I think, and then I think in the mid levels you're going to have frontogenetic forcing. This is almost like a wintertime Norland trough situation, very much like that, where when you're to the east of that thing, you get a lot of snow. To bring everybody's favorite season into the picture here,
I have to tell you that you're on the same page with our favorite, one of our favorite people and recent charm school graduate, David Toleris, who had this big write-up I saw this afternoon, talking exactly that this is really like a Norland trough, coming back westward like we would see in the wintertime.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. And you get it's like you're taking all these things that are really mesoscale in nature and trying to predict where bands of heavy rain are going to form. This is not like trying to predict a big storm. That's almost easier in some ways.
Just let me really quick say good evening to everybody on the chat board and welcome to tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show. And for those of you who are new to the show or lurking in the background for the first time, or maybe you lurk on the background every night, thanks for being here. We hope you like it. If you do, hit the like button. We have meteorologist Bill Goodman on here from the National Weather Service Forecast Office in Upton, New York, which has the responsibility of putting out forecasts for northeastern New Jersey, the Hudson Valley, New York City, Long Island, and portions of southern Connecticut. So how do you, Bill, take us through how you think this is going to play out. For most of our viewers here on the Joe and Joe Weather Show are in eastern Pennsylvania, east of I-81. I mean, there are a few people that are outside of that, but east of I-81, eastern Pennsylvania, the state of New Jersey, the lower middle Hudson Valley, Connecticut, Long Island, New York City. How does this play out? And who, if this is a Norland, we're talking about this as sort of a Norland trough in the wintertime, there's going to be a jackpot zone and there's going to be a zone where there's a boilerplate over it probably. So how would you describe it? How would you think this is going to play out?
Well, first I'm going to start with the radar right now. All
right, let me bring it up on the screen, so this way everybody can follow you along.
All right, and I'll be looking off to my right. I have the MRS
okay
product viewer looking at it a little bit differently. I mean, we had a little bit of rain come through the city, and now it's up into the Hudson Valley right now. Looks like it's. Did it get to your house yet, Joe, up there in Putnam Valley? It must be.
The radar shows that it is over my house, although my rain gauge as of yet has not indicated anything, and I have not stepped outside. I can tell you, however, that when I was doing the lawn this afternoon.
It's raining.
Okay, thank you. The executive producer says yes, it is raining.
Okay.
But when I was doing the lawn this afternoon, I was getting some spotty light drizzle. I'm saying to myself, wait a minute, it's like 2:30, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. This isn't supposed to be happening right now. I'd at least wait until it gets dark. But already we were starting to get little light spotty precipitation in the afternoon hours today.
Yeah, I had seen that earlier. So there's another little batch of rain going through northeast Jersey and up in the Hudson Valley. That's not of much consequence. It looks like something a little bit heavier is getting together south of Long Island and down into southern New Jersey, and that's probably going to be the first batch to come in late this evening and overnight. And I don't even think that's necessarily the main event. I think that comes late tonight and into the morning, through the morning hours. So going to be a fun commute going through the fun commute in the metro area, getting to work. That's probably when some of the heaviest rain is going to fall.
Some people now, just a couple of notes on how this is being marketed, shall we say, for lack of a better word. So I've heard, and Joe, you've heard it too, and I'm sure Bill, you've heard it too. The remnants of Ophelia. Now, I don't think it is. I think this is a totally separate situation. You could make a case maybe that part of the energy that was Ophelia got left behind in this whole this whole frontal boundary that's been sitting off the East Coast for the last 3 or 4 days. Does it really matter at the end of the day? I mean, I think we would be dealing with this regardless of whether we had Ophelia was a tropical storm last week or not.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. It's just Ophelia just happened to be in the middle of this whole big area of disturbed weather. You had an upper low that was digging toward the southeast coast, I guess late last week, and this is really part of that system that just still hasn't gone away. And then you have another closed low coming in from the west. I mean, you have different players coming onto the field right now, so it's not just. I mean, to say that it's Ophelia is kind of, it's not really. I mean, it's not 100% wrong, but it's not really correct either. It's
But I should point out last week that we were talking about here in Joe and Joe that the long range models, this is a week ago, was showing some kind of a coastal storm system, And we were saying, oh well, that's interesting. We'll see how that plays out. And here we are now a week later. This doesn't exactly look like your classic nor'easter, but it is indeed a system offshore that indeed is interacting with another system to the west and an upper level disturbance that all is combining to produce what almost looks like an epicenter of tremendous rain that is centered almost right on top of the New York City metropolitan area.
Yeah, just a case of timing is everything, and this is it looks like it's going to work out for some part of our area, that all these ingredients just happen to be lining up either right on top of the city or somewhere reasonably close to it. And I guess that's part of this, is it's it's going to be it's going to be feast or famine in terms of rain. I think, but maybe some areas don't see that much if you're not underneath the heaviest stuff, but if you're underneath it, you're gonna know it's raining, all right. That's
Well, I have the OKX radar up. There's a pretty solid band of heavy rain just off the South Shore that extends. If you go out, say, I don't know, maybe uh, south of Robert Moses, or maybe a little further east of that, just go south of Robert Moses, and then draw a line from there west into southern Monmouth, northern Ocean County. There's some pretty interesting looking areas of moderate to heavy rain. It might even be, there's a couple of big red spots out there too. So I wonder where there might be a little bit of convection. Now that brings another question. If there's going to be, SPC's got an area of general thunderstorms indicated for overnight into tomorrow morning, and I just wonder whether we're going to see some convective variability here, where somebody's going to wind up getting, say, double what the town next door gets.
I guess so. I don't necessarily know that I don't know that there'd be enough instability for thunder. I think that when you look at it, it looks like there is some elevated convection, but not like a whole lot of elevated cape. So maybe maybe some couple of rumbles of thunder here and there. That'd be that type of situation, not like a summertime thunderstorm situation.
All right,
They were calling for. Sorry about that, Joe.
That's all right.
They were at SPC. They were calling in the general thunderstorm area, and this was for day one. This is for today, talking about this later tonight after midnight and toward daybreak tomorrow morning. And then for day two, the general thunderstorm coverage actually shifts to the south. So if there is any kind of convection, I guess the SPC folks are suggesting that's going to happen between midnight and dawn. So you may hear some rumbles of thunder. But for tomorrow, again, much of the activity seemingly will be shifting to the south of the immediate tri-state area.
One of the things I'm kind of curious about, because, I mean, I hate to put it this way, Bill, but there's a bus out there, and it's waiting for people to be thrown under it tomorrow, in one form or another. And of course, I'm sure, because I've seen and read a number of people echo Ida from a few years ago, and what happened with that in terms of the amount of rain that fell and how much flooding that occurred. I would argue that this is, meteorologically, it's a totally different setup, but it doesn't matter if you got 6 inches of rain from the remnant of an identifiable tropical low versus an inverted trough. We might care from a technicality, but the average person's not going to care. But I'm just kind of curious. Is the message resonating in terms of the forecast and the information that's going out, that there could be some serious flooding in some places? I mean, I know it's kind of touchy because we're not 100% sure exactly who's going to get what.
Yeah, that makes it tough. In a situation like that, about all we can say is, if you're in the flash flood watch, prepare as if, and be thankful if it doesn't happen, because it's just that type of situation. There's just no getting around that.
Yeah.
Well, you know as well as I, Bill and Joe, that if we do get massive flash flooding, and if we do see problems somewhat similar to what happened with Ida, that the politicians are going to come out of their hole or out of their
Holes.
and immediately point the finger at the forecasters that say, well, nobody told us about this. We never. And the plain bottom line is that I made the point after Ida, and I'll make it again now before this setup, is that if we do have tremendous flash flooding in parts of the New York City metropolitan area, it's not because of the forecaster, it's because of the infrastructure we are using to drain our streets and highways and roadways, infrastructure that's 80, 90, about 100 years old. And every time this happens, some politician will say, well, we got to make we have to improve the infrastructure, and nothing is ever done. And then we just sit here and we wait for the next episode, which may very well, boys and girls, be at our doorstep for later tonight and tomorrow.
Go ahead, Bill. You got the floor. Your head's on the chop.
Right. Well, I think it's just wait and see. I think what we're going to see tonight, we're just going to see successive waves of these showers come through. I guess we got this one that's just the south. That's going to come through the metro area this evening, and it looks like there's even right behind it off the Jersey Shore. There's another one that's going to come together. I think the one that finally gets here in the morning is the one that's going to be greeted by the upper low to the west, and that's really going to be the one that does most of the damage in terms of heavy rain. Right? These are, I don't want to say garden variety, but these are just kind of priming the pump. These bands of showers that we see the first half of tonight. It's going to be more as we get toward the late night into the morning hours.
WPC on their latest forecast map. I'm going to just very quickly hit the refresh button just in case, because sometimes they do these, and I've noticed that sometimes I know it's effective from 0Z, but I'll refresh it a couple of times between 6 o'clock and 8 o'clock, and there'll be like little adjustments here. Some places will shave a little less, some places will get a little more, but they didn't really change anything, and they've got, the dark red is 2.5 inches, and that kind of extends. That's kind of pushing into some of the northwestern counties of New Jersey, but over New York City down to Monmouth County, Nassau and West Suffolk, western Connecticut, pretty much where the flood watches are up, and also in the Hudson Valley up to or even north of Poughkeepsie, say southern Dutchess County. They've got what looks like about, 4+, which I think is reasonable. And Joe and I have been using this rule over the summer, and it seemed to work very well, that when you get a situation where there's, in the summertime where it's convective, you can take the forecast and double the amounts in some places, possibly locally. Mm-hmm. This might be, as you said, there might be some convection, but it might not be an overly convective type of setup. But WPC's forecast, I think, is fair, given what we're dealing with.
Yeah. I think so. I mean, with that, it's a very well collaborated forecast. We had all the local offices on the phone discussing this. So, I told them what you and Joe had to say about it, and incorporated that to the.
No, they told Joe, Bill. No. Let me correct you. They told you because they watched the Joe and Joe weather show last night. They took notes. They took notes on their iPads, and they just kind of wrote everything down. Every once in a while, though, I got to laugh, because we will say something on the show the night before, and the next day it shows up in a discussion. And I was particularly I got a really good laugh with Ophelia, because I forgot what it was. It was something I was pointing out on the show, something technical that was going on, that it wasn't something that anybody would really mention. And then the next discussion, when they upgraded it to a tropical storm, they almost like word for word said it was exactly what I said. And it's like, well, if you ever doubted that they don't watch. All right, so look, while we have you here, and I don't want to hold you up, because I know you said you've got stuff to do, so you just let me know when it's time to go. So maybe you should wait for a question that you really don't want to answer and say, oops, got to go. There goes my doorbell. All right. I'll have to call you back.
Usually Joe Rayo's the one to ask the question that's hard to answer. I've been waiting.
Well, let me ask you this. There's two things I want to ask you, because you and I converse a lot uh, during the average week. Uh, shooting shooting us each of us shooting off messages of gloom and doom or whatever it is. But what's your take? I think I asked you this before, but now that we're almost to the end of September, what is your take on the fact that we've got this developing El Nino and the Atlantic hurricane season has been, incredibly busy? For an El Nino year, this should not have produced, we should not be anywhere near the R storm. And at the same time, in the Eastern Pacific, where they probably should be near the R storm, they just got through the K storm. So I'm just kind of thinking, I'm just wondering, you know, rules in weather have not been followed very well in the last 6 or 7 or 8 months, and I just was wondering whether you had any thoughts on that.
No, no, they must have heard from the Siberian snow people that that wasn't working out too well, so they decided to stop making this work. I don't know the answer. I mean, there was talk earlier this year about the really warm Atlantic sea surface temperatures maybe squelching the influence of El Nino. And then we've been talking about that. Where's that volcano in Tonga?
Yeah,
Just announced
but
about water
into the
vapor that's in the
stratosphere.
atmosphere.
What was it like?
But that these things could have they all can have an influence, and I think we're seeing that. Actually, I know offline. I think I was saying to you that I think this weather system in general I think this is actually the first time we're seeing something that I think is El Nino influenced. I've seen years in the past where you get to late September, early October, you get these cutoffs in the southeast, and this one just happened to be tangled up with something tropical, and we get a big mess like we could have on our hands tomorrow. So I think we are starting to see some influence from it. Uh,
Well, well,
uh,
well. To take it a step further, then, because the snow lovers they're waiting for me to ask this question. So let's go down that particular road. Um,
oh, gotta go.
right, exactly, exactly. What any early ideas on look, it's going to be different than last, it's got to be different than last year.
Oh yeah,
It
yeah, I would think
has to
so.
be. There's no way that we're going to set up with a ridge in the eastern part of the United States for 4 months in a row, and there's no way that we're going to get, bite my tongue, there's no way that we're going to get, we're going to get the endless fire hose into the west, with record snowfalls and record rainfalls for a second straight year. So given that, I mean, any ideas on where we're going with this?
Well, I mean, the long-term European has some promising signals that it looks like it's suggesting a storm track like you'd expect in an El Nino year across the southern tier of states, and then maybe off the coast, and had some inkling of above normal heights and somewhere near Greenland during at least January and February. I mean, those are some of the things you want to see. Whether there's a cold air supply, I don't know. I just read something, and I think I shared it with you a few days ago about looking at the
Yeah,
quasi-biennial
I
oscillation that
I did see that. Yes.
yeah, that seems to be pointing toward towards something, where we maybe situations where the polar vortex could break down this winter. I mean, there's so much that goes into it. I think this might, for all the poo-pooing we've done of Siberian snowfall the last few years, where it hasn't quite worked out, this might actually be a year where it's worth paying attention to, because if the polar vortex breaks down, that's all well and good, but like it's nice if it has a cold air supply to pull from when
And it's
you know
also
when
nice if it couples, because
yeah, yeah. So
we've seen over the last several years where we've had breakdowns in the polar vortex, and it never coupled in the lower atmosphere, or people talking about the Madden-Julian oscillation and what phase it's in, and it's all fine and dandy if it's in phases 8, 1, and 2, but if it doesn't couple across the Pacific and onto the Atlantic side, what good is it?
yeah, yeah. So there's a lot, lots still has to go into this. I mean, timing's everything with those things, and I think I'm just gonna. I mean, so those are some things of early promise, but I'm not hanging my hat on any of them until I'm gonna wait till after Halloween before I really start. I want to see what's going on there. Make sure you don't have anything in the Western Pacific, any kind of typhoon that's just you come up with this great forecast, then some typhoon recurves and totally rearranges the deck chairs, and and your perfect forecast goes south right away before you even got started.
Well,
So
I'll tell you this, because we do have the models are now pointing to a fairly deep trough at the end of next week to come into the east and bring down a shot of genuine cool air into the eastern United States, going all the way down. And the European has it, the GFS has it. Pretty impressive looking upper trough for the middle part for the for October 10th. I kind of thought that the sudden model switch, I believe happened because the models have not been handling Tropical Storm Philippe and very well at all, because a lot of them, earlier this week they were recurving it as a major hurricane and taking it up, northeastward or east northeastward, and I'm wondering whether that not happening has now kind of altered things to some degree to its west and to its east.
maybe. I'm just disappointed. I'm disappointed in the timing of all that. I got a wedding to go to next weekend, and and I don't want it to be spoiled by that cold front.
Well, your wedding is what?
In.
The wedding is what, Saturday?
Next Saturday, yeah. And that
Yeah,
looks
well,
like
the cold front's Friday night, so unless it gets hung up, and I don't know that it will, but unless it gets hung up, I would think you should be fine.
Yeah, the Euro is a little bit slower than the GFS with it, so we shall see.
You're actually telling a forecaster at the National Weather Service what's going to happen?
Well, Joe, they do watch the show.
I will say this crossed my mind today, considering what's coming our way tomorrow. You may remember this, Joe, that I did a study a couple of years ago during right after Ida of the wettest summers, the 10 wettest summers, and in 7 out of the 10 cases, the winter that followed was below normal at Central Park. However, that's for the 10 wettest summers, June, July, and August. We're no longer in that. We had a very wet July, and we had a very wet August, but we didn't have a very wet. In fact, I think from what I saw this afternoon, when I look back at the records, that June was like 2 inches below normal. So that sets everything apart. So it doesn't look like if you want to.
Well, in those other years, did all 3 years were all 3 months were all above normal, or was it the cumulative of the 3 months?
The cumulative of the 3 months.
Well, then it doesn't matter if June was 2 inches below normal.
I understand that, but still, when I look for the top 10 wettest summers.
Okay. So you're saying that because of the above normal June, I'm sorry, the below normal June, that this summer was not in that top 10.
Correct. Correct. Those top 10 summers had something like anywhere from 12 to 24 inches. And because of the fact that if June had been a normal month, we might have been right at the bottom of the list, but we would have been right in there. But it falls below 10 inches total. I mean, we made up all of our precipitation this summer during July and especially August, or should I say especially July and again in August. But what I'm saying is that had it fallen into that category, and if we had had an unusually wet summer, that would have, 70% probability would have leaned toward a below normal winter in terms of snowfall. Although the chairman just points out that we have never had, in the 150 plus years of records at Central Park, we have never had 2 consecutive years where the snowfall has been less than 10 inches. So based upon that, you would have to think that we're going to have a lot more than just 2.5 inches of snow at Central Park this year.
I would think so, and at the very least, I think we're going to have a stormy winter one way or the other, whether it's
Well, it certainly doesn't hurt that we're seeing these coastal lows right now, because this didn't happen last year.
Yeah, and we'll just see how it continues. But I mean, so the signals in the European are promising, but let's wait till after Halloween and see how some other things play out over the next month before really getting,
Well, I'm with you. We could sit here and speculate all we want, and we could look at this, that, or the other thing, and this correlation and that correlation. And at the end of the day, the only thing that I think that there's a high probability of that we're all going to be at least partially wrong, if at least partially wrong, if not, more than partially wrong.
We're gonna have to do is it the hippy dippy weatherman forecast? It's gonna be dark.
Yeah.
Scattered light toward morning.
So just to be clear, I'll bring it up on the screen because you mentioned it earlier. Um, the 29-inch max precip amount that's off the New Jersey coast in the area on the 3 kilometer NAM is probably just a touch overdone.
I hope so. I hope so. What bothers me is that it's there, and
Yes.
I
No,
guess
I
that's
get
the
that. I get that. Yes.
I guess if you move that to where some of the other models have been painting their stripe of heavy rainfall, that's bothersome. Although I say that's just it's ridiculously overdone. There was actually with the whole evolution of this thing, I was actually reminded of an event that happened. Don't ask me how I remember this. This is in October 1996. There was a rainfall event in southern Maine where you had an offshore hurricane. You had an upper low coming in from the west, and there was this connection with good southeast inflow. And there were some places, and this was more of a multi-day event. Some places in southern Maine that shattered their all-time rainfall records with 10 to 20 inches of rain in short order. It bore enough of a passing resemblance that that I'm a little bit worried that somebody could get in the 6 to 10 inch range of rainfall from this tomorrow.
And don't forget that event at Islip several years ago, right? 12 inches in
Yeah,
3 hours.
Islip, I think, still has the New York State record for
Yeah.
a 24-hour rain. Well, and it fell in 6 hours. Bill? I remember that because I woke up at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning, and it sounded like somebody had put a waterfall over my house, and I could, in terms of if here in North Georgia, there's waterfalls everywhere. So, if you go near a waterfall, you could hear them like a half a mile away. I mean, this was out my window, and I remember just kind of looking through the blinds and just seeing what looked like a river going from the roof down to the ground. I don't think I've ever seen it rain as hard as I did in that. I think it was 2013?
Something like
Something like
around
that.
2013, 2014. And they're all starting to blend. We're getting too many of these events. They're all starting to blend into.
Yeah, and also as you get older, you just lose, you just lose total track.
I didn't want to go there.
Well, it was bound to happen. One of us was going to bring that up. All right. Well, anything else you'd like to add?
No,
by the way,
that's about it. We watched the. Oh
no, I was going to say, I'm sorry. By the way, if there is a government shutdown, you guys are considered essential, right?
Oh, we're essential. We're not going anywhere. We'll get paid eventually if it's a long shutdown, but I think the longest one I might have been one paycheck behind. It wasn't too painful. I try not to pay too much attention to it.
I think it went like 3 weeks.
Yeah. I knew some folks from the IRS that were very happy. I don't know what kind of workload they had waiting for them when they got back. I
worked there. Trust me, it didn't matter. The pile is still there, so whether it's you get to it now or you get to it 3 weeks from now, it didn't matter.
Before we let you go, Bill, I just want to let you in. I did a list of precipitation totals based upon the Plume's 15Z run. White Plains 2.13, Poughkeepsie 1.81, LaGuardia 2.3, JFK 2.86, Belmar, New Jersey 2.53, Bridgeport 2.15, and Islip 2.32. If you average all of those out, they come out to 2.3 inches for the event. And most of the places that I just mentioned are indicating on the 3-hour, a 3-hourly QPF, the peak comes generally somewhere between 8 o'clock tomorrow morning and about 2 or 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. In that time frame, that's when I guess you'd expect the heaviest bands or heaviest precip. So at least with the Plumes, they're going for a heavy amount of rain, no question about that. But they're not going off the wall with 4 and 5 and 6 and 8 or 27 inches or whatever like that. They're generally suggesting a 2 to maybe a 2.5 inch rainfall total for the immediate tri-state area, with a little less. Poughkeepsie again 1.81. So we'll see how this all pans out. And of course, tomorrow night after we look at the numbers and we see, Poughkeepsie with 5.8 inches. This place,
Yeah, I'd be interested in looking at the plumes to see how many of them. I mean, are they all forecasting that much rainfall, or are there some that don't have very much, and then there are some that have that 4 to 6? And now I have something to do my last hour here at the office and get a handle on that.
You can make those numbers on the plume come out to anything you want if you take out the if you take out the right models.
Right.
Yeah. Like take out all the ones that have zeros in them all the way across, but make sure you leave in all the ones that have 27 inches on. You leave those in. Okay.
Well, as long as you know why you're doing it. I mean, sometimes, like I'll do that if I know it's going to snow and some of those plumes are zero, excuse me, because they're forecasting rain. Those are easy to take out.
Oh yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, if you know it's going to snow, and yeah, because sometimes some of them do bizarre things where they show you nothing. I mean, they don't even sometimes those models might not only show you nothing, but they might even not show you any precip at all. So yeah, you definitely wind up taking those out.
And Rich Rothmansky writes, waiting for the ASOS to malfunction tomorrow during heavy rainfall.
Yeah.
Well,
we don't want that to happen. Although it's funny, after rainfall events, there are usually a couple of ASOSs that require what we call a priority 2 type of trouble ticket on them. So they not so much malfunction as they need to be looked at. It might have some tipping. I guess enough issues during a rainfall event they got to be looked at.
All right, so you know what? I think we pretty much covered this all, so I think we'll all say goodnight together. How's that? It's
okay.
Coming up on 8:15. Now, the ASOS may fail, but one thing that won't fail is if you have a Tempest by WeatherFlow weather station, which is sponsor of the Joe and Joe Weather Show. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system, and you can join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link is pinned to the top of the chat board. It's also on the descriptor to this video. And if you use the coupon code I want a weather station, what do they get, Joe Rayo?
10% off, Joe.
And Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York, 631-756-1125 for the best prices in town. OmniTrueValue.com is the website. I decided to do that myself tonight because you have to thank those that hit the super chat.
Well, tonight we had the chairman hit super chat, Leon Probitsky, and as he normally does when he does on those occasions hit super chat, Quiet John.
Yes, generous Quiet John.
Yes.
You and I get to now look at the items that are on the right side of the menu, as opposed to the left side of the menu. Thank you, Quiet John. Really, that was a very generous tip jar hit. Most appreciated.
I must rudely bid fondue right now. And I'm being called back to the.
Well, you know what, Bill, you never cared about us anyway. All you ever wanted was supper on the table, no responsibility. My granddaughter is prettier than yours.
Oh, that's impossible.
No, it is. No, they're both gorgeous. They're both gorgeous.
Yes, they are. Yes, thanks for sharing that picture earlier.
Yeah, no problem. And I'll see you soon,
Okay.
Mr. Rayo. Maybe
we'll stay dry, everybody. Gotta go.
Okay, bye, Bill.
Bye, Bill.
Bye.
And that was our Bill Goodman from the National Weather Service office in Upton, New York, in central Long Island, covering the New York, New Jersey tri-state area. And Joe, we've got 105 likes, which is nice. So we thank those of you who hit the like button. And I'm not sure yet about tomorrow night if we're going to do a show. So we'll see.
All right, well,
okay, we'll see. I had I somehow yesterday, I don't know if I made it clear. I said that we probably would have a show tonight, but there's a chance that we won't. So I know some of you might have gotten confused. So I'm sort of hesitating about tomorrow. So look, if there winds up being a show tomorrow, the chat board will probably be opened up around 6 o'clock or so. And that'll be your clue that there'll be a show tomorrow night. All right? So we'll see. Maybe we'll see you then. If not, we'll see you Sunday. Bye bye.
Buy bonds.